This week's parsha is Parshat Korach. Maybe not the happiest of events, kind of like last week, unfortunately, but it is what it is, and we have to take the lessons we can learn from it. So this is based on Rav Bernstein's shiur. I heard it last year. This is 2017 shiur. I listened to it again, loved it, wanted to share it. So been waiting a year to say this. Okay. Now, Korach and his men need to be punished in a way that really makes it clear that everything they're saying is wrong from the outset. So we're going to go to verse 28. So chapter 16, verse 28, Tet Zayin, Pasuk Kavchet. I'll read it in English. Moshe said, "Through this shall you know that Hashem sent me to perform all these acts, that it was not from my heart." So that is to say, Moshe is saying that this is how you'll know that this wasn't me commanding, it really was from God. If these die like the death of all men, as in if Korach's men die the death of all men, and the destiny of all men is visited upon them, then it is not Hashem who has sent me. So Moshe is really putting everything on the line here. And the reason why he's probably doing that is because everything is on the line here when Korach challenges him. Verse 30. V'im bria yivra Hashem, right? But if Hashem will create a creation, and the ground will open its mouth and swallow them and all that is theirs, and they will descend alive to the pit, then you shall know that these men have provoked Hashem. Now, the Maseh Hashem, as quoted by Rav Bernstein, asks a very simple question here, but a very pointed question here. That's to say, why specifically here do we need to have a new Bria? Why this V'im Bria Yivra Hashem? If God creates this new creation to punish them, it's like, for the ground to open its mouth, why is that necessary? Now, the reason why we're asking this is because Bnei Israel have sinned and made mistakes in the past in the desert, and whenever God chose to punish them, He punished them. He didn't need to create a new Bria, so why is that specifically necessary here? Why does God need to create this new Bria? That's the question of the Maseh Hashem. Simple, but pointed. Okay. So then, Rav Bernstein goes and quotes Nedarim. I'm going to look, I have it on my computer. I unfortunately don't have a physical copy. So, the Gemara on Nedarim, Lamentet, Amud Beis, right, 39b, if you want to look it up yourself, is quoting a pasuk from Habakkuk, one of the prophets in the Trei Asar, right, in the 12 prophets. Okay. So says the pasuk, Ma'dichtiv, Shemesh Yerech Amad Zvula. The sun and moon stood in Zvul. Now, just to explain, so the Gemara has a very detailed list of exactly how many layers there are to heaven. I think there are 7 layers of heaven. And there are obviously this goes on a ladder, so some are higher than others. So Zvul is one of the higher ones. Okay, so the Gemara is bothered. What is the Shemesh and Yerech doing in Zvul? This question is unlikely to have bothered us. What do we know? But it bothers the Gemara, and they want to figure this out. What are they doing there? And the reason why the Gemara asks this is because we know the Shemesh and Yerech are in Rakia. Where do we know that from? From Bereshit. Bereshit, Aleph, Pasuk, Yud Chet, Yud Zayin. So he says, Ve'itanu tam Elokim b'Rakia hashamayim la'ir ala haaretz. So God placed them, that is to say, the Shemesh and Yerech, in the Rakia. So that is where the Shemesh and Yerech belong. What are they doing in Zvul? That's above their pay grade. That's too high for them. Answers the Gemara. Melamed she'alu Shemesh v'Yerech merakia lizvul. So this teaches us that the Shemesh and Yerech, the sun and the moon, went up from the Rakia to Zvul. V'amru lefanav, and they said in front of God, Ribono shel olam, right? God, imata oseh din leven Amram. If you take up the cause of Ben Amram, if you take up the cause of Moshe, Moshe's father's name was Amram, so he's the son of Amram, right? Anu me'irim, then we'll shine. If you take up the cause of Moshe, we will shine. Vim lav, ein anu me'irim. If you don't take up his cause, we won't shine. What is going on here? What does this mean? What is this ultimatum? What drives the sun and the moon to come up to Zvul? What's happening? Says the Maseh Hashem. Very important yesod. Yesod that can be badly misunderstood. We need to appreciate something deeply about Torah that perhaps we would have taken for granted. Torah is based on Emunah. There's no question about that. Its point of departure is faith. That is to say, you need to believe in the Torah. Now, we may be inclined to believe that, or to think, that on an ongoing basis, Torah and Emunah are two completely separate things. they're two different things. That is to say, faith, get that wherever you get that from. And Torah, once you have that faith, then come to Torah and we'll teach you the laws about how to live. Okay, says Rav Bernstein, I'm assuming quoting the Maaseh Hashem, that is not accurate. Now, it sounds much easier than it is because the truth is, it's very difficult to believe that Bnei Israel would have come to the correct faith conclusions without the Torah. So the Torah is not just a result of Emunah. It doesn't just kind of wait for Emunah as a launch pad, but rather it's almost like a feedback loop. That is to say, learning Torah, understanding our Masorah, the connections from 3,300 years ago. So the Rambam actually, the Rambam lived about 900 years ago, 8 to 900 years ago, I think closer to 9, maybe 850. He wrote his Mishnah Torah, right? His compendium of halacha that really quotes like pretty much all of the Gemara. Part of the joy of studying the Rambam is actually trying to figure out exactly where he gets the source from his halachas. He was pretty controversial back in his day, but now obviously well accepted. The Rambam, before he even begins the Mishnah Torah, lists a whole list of our gedolim, of the manhigim, of the leaders, of the leading Torah sages through the generations, all the way from Moshe to his day, and he ends with himself. That's over 2,000 years. Just thinking about that deeply, the fact that we have the original works from Moshe all the way to our time, that's to say, you look at the leaders all the way from Moshe to the prophets, everything in the Bible, and then from there we have the Mishnah and the Gemara and the writings of the Gaonim to the Rishonim to the Achronim to our day. That is incredible. My own Rosh Yeshiva can trace his own lineage back from himself all the way back to Moshe. Just learning that really deepens the idea of Emunah into you. So, says the Maaseh Hashem. Just to conclude. So the Torah is really, it's like a feedback loop. That is to say, don't think that just you have Emunah and you have Torah, and those are two separate things, but rather learning Torah helps you build Emunah. Now, says the Maaseh Hashem, we can actually test this theory, because any other way you have of trying to arrive at Emunah is very fragile and delicate. It's liable to being seen in a different light. Now, the classic theory is what people say is just look out at the world, look how amazing nature is, look at all these laws. Clearly, there must be a creator. Well, that's really not very true, because a lot of people look out at the world and they don't see God. This happens back in our day, and in fact, the founding father of the Jewish people, Avraham Avinu, was famous for looking out at the world and seeing God and being the only one to do so back in his day. So this isn't unique only to our day, but this is true back centuries and even millennia, back to the beginning of the Jewish people. Looking out at the world and seeing God is not so simple. Once you have Emunah, then you see it like that. But until you reach that point, that's not entirely true, because anyone could look at nature and see it however they want to see it. You come to the conclusion that you want to come to. Now, this is what the Gemara in Nedarim is expressing, although in a very esoteric way. That is to say, that the sun and the moon are misaprim kavod el. They speak of the glory of God. That's true only if you're listening. It's true, they're constantly beaming out that message, but if you're not receiving, then it has no effect on you. So that's what they mean when they say, if you don't take up the cause of Amram, right? If you don't see that what Moshe is saying, that his Torah is true, that the whole question isn't only questioning the veracity of the Torah, it's questioning the presence of Emunah, of faith, of God's existence in the world. Because if he's questioned, then even though it's true the sun and the moon might still give off their light, ein anu me'irin. The whole point of us shining light is for you to see that deeper element there. That is to say, to see God behind our light. That's what it's meant to do. Because again, they're misaprim kavodel. This isn't true, by the way, only of the sun and the moon. They're just taken as examples here. So now, what's being expressed in this parasha, in this episode, is to really appreciate this aspect of Torah, whereby so many things of how to look at the world are true, but we only see them as true once we have the Torah, right? Which gives you that orientation, because or else you wouldn't see them in that light. That's to say, you look out at nature, and now you might see, if you're a religious person, if you accept the Torah, then you'll be, wow, look at this, it's amazing. This really speaks of God, but you only accept that because you accept the Torah. So it's not like you have the Emunah and then you get to Torah. Sometimes you have Torah and then you get to the Emunah. Therefore, says the Maaseh Hashem, that is what Moshe is doing when he calls upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu to create this new Bria. Right? V'im Bria Yivra Hashem ufatza Adam et Pia, right? if you will create a new creation and the earth will open up its mouth and swallow these people, right? So the reason why we want a new creation is in order to demonstrate the veracity of Moshe's position and the terrible mistake of Korach, that what he said is incorrect, totally and absolutely. So we need to create this I'm calling for a new creation, because ultimately what is at stake is if the Torah is not recognized, then Hashem as creator is not recognized. So the authentication of Torah is coming through Hashem once again acting as creator and making this miracle of the earth opening up its mouth. You should have a wonderful Shabbos and a Chodesh Tov. Today's Rosh Chodesh, so you should celebrate.